If you can't comp to household name authors and you shouldn't comp to no name authors, what's the sweet spot? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what the sweet spot is. Or everybody thinks that they have an opinion about what the sweet spot is, but the sweet spot is really difficult to gauge. You are correct in identifying that there is a spectrum here. We have the absolute household name you cannot comp to them authors. These are Stephen King, Brandon Sanderson, Harry Potter books. These are James Patterson. Like, these are the people that everybody knows their name. If the regular American out there can identify this author by their photo, they are too famous. You cannot be using them. If they were an author who makes eight figures per year or more off of their books, you cannot be comping to them. And you are correct. This goes the other way as well. If this person is an author that literally nobody but you has ever heard of and only three copies of their book have ever been sold, that means that traditional publishing can expect to sell three copies of your book. That no one's going to want to pay you for that. If you're saying, well, the only thing like mine doesn't sell and doesn't make money, then nobody's going to give you money for your book. And there is a big, wide spectrum on there. There are hundreds of thousands of titles released every year. So if you are going back over the last 2 to 3 years worth of releases, you have a 500,000 titles to choose from or something close to that. There's a lot of spectrum between those big household name authors, the ones that are selling two copies on Amazon, and everything in between. The idea here is you are talking to a professional within this space. If you are writing, oh, I got mixed up with another comment, but let's say you are writing YA epic fantasy, you are going to be pitching to literary agents who represent YA epic fantasy, which means that you do not need to rely on Lee Bardugo and Sarah J. Maas because those are blockbusters within that space. You can instead go to some other authors that are selling, a few thousand copies that maybe haven't hit the New York Times list, but they are mid-list authors and they've released 6 or 7 books in the last 10 years. You can go to these other authors that are sort of in this gray space in between. That gray space, in fact, if a lot of people are like, I don't know, that's probably going to be okay. There are absolute no-nos on this side, absolute no-nos on that side, and then a whole lot of opinions in between. Some people will give you some arbitrary numbers about how many reviews a book can have or how many ratings on Goodreads it can have, but this is largely skewed by the types of readers who use Goodreads and write online reviews versus the size of the audience. So I tend to shy away from these numerical values because I don't think they're particularly helpful if you get outside some very specific genres that are consistent from Amazon to Goodreads and back and forth. Like, if you're outside of basically like contemporary romance, YA fantasy, if you're outside of those spaces, then those numbers don't become very helpful anyway.